Today we're talking about something that's really useful for someone moving to Australia or visiting soon: public transport in Australian cities. Figuring out how to get around can be confusing at first, but don't worry, I'll break down everything you need to know about public transport and getting around, from ticket options to saving money. I've got you covered, so let's get started. Alright, let's start with the basics. Public transport in Australia is pretty efficient and covers almost everywhere you can travel. You can even travel Australia cross country on trains, buses and ferries. Here's what you need to know about the different types of public transport that's available to you. There are obviously trains. They're fast and convenient for getting around cities and suburbs, and Sydney and Melbourne especially have an extensive railway network. It's been around for ages and it goes pretty much everywhere in the cities. There are also buses. They're available in all cities and perfect for short distances, and the great thing about them is they'll drop you right where you need to go, like drop you off there. But with trains, you'll be getting off at a train station nearby wherever you're going. And buses are really to reach places not covered by trains, so think specific areas of suburbs. I personally really like buses. Now there's also trams that are iconic in Melbourne, and they're actually free within the CBD area. So if you're traveling on a tram anywhere in the CBD area in Melbourne, it's free. We don't have that in Sydney. We have a light rail in Sydney, Canberra and Gold Coast, a modern and comfortable way to get around. It's kind of like a tram but different. There's also ferries. This is my favorite way to travel if there is a ferry stop. It's mainly in cities like Sydney where there is a harbour. It's a scenic way to travel, especially if you're going to the other end of the harbour. You just take a ferry, which is like a boat that's public transport, and it gets you around the beautiful ocean that's in the middle of your destination. What a way to travel. I especially love that about Sydney. Now let's talk about how you pay for public transport in different cities. Each city has its own smart card system. Like Sydney uses an Opal card. You can get these at convenience stores or train stations, but also you can use your contactless card that's on your phone or your physical debit and credit cards as well, which is one of the things I love about getting around in Sydney. You don't need that specific travel card. You do get some benefits if you have it, like if you travel in the same hour, it will have your second trip for free. But I just like the convenience of using my credit card and not have to top up my Opal card every time. In Melbourne, there's a Myki card. It's available at train stations and 7-Eleven stores, and make sure to top it up before boarding. You can also add it to your phone now, which is really convenient when I went there the last time. In Brisbane, they have a Go card, and it works on all public transport, including ferries. You can buy those at convenience stores as well, and I thought it was pretty cheap to do that. In Sydney, it costs more on public transport, so I wasn't bothered by the price. In Perth, they have a smart rider card, which offers discounts for frequent travelers. And in Adelaide, they have a Metro card. You can also buy single trip tickets on buses. It's a very community feeling when you're on public transport in Adelaide. I personally felt that. Everyone's super kind. Even the bus driver will just guide you through everything. You know, they're not in a rush. In Sydney, I think everyone's in a rush, so it's a bit like figure it out on your own. But I think that's why they have the convenience of tapping your card. Now, most cities offer daily or weekly caps on the amount you can spend on public transport, so it doesn't get too out of hand, meaning once you reach a certain limit, you won't be charged for additional trips, and you can do unlimited travel on that day. I think every day in Sydney, you can't spend more than $20 on transport, and after you've hit that limit, you can do unlimited travel on public transport, which is great. Next up, navigating the transport system can be easier if you have apps that help you plan your journey. I highly recommend Google Maps. It's reliable and covers all cities, but it might not update in time. Like if some trains get cancelled or changed, there might be some delay in Google Maps. Now in Sydney, there's TripView. It shows real-time train and buses update and schedules. In Melbourne, they have PTV for tram and train timings. And in Brisbane, there's TransLink, which shows the accurate schedules and ticket top-ups. These apps show you the fastest route, how long the journey will take, and even notify you of delays. I recommend on Google Maps first seeing how the journey can be planned, because it gives you the rundown of every possible way you can travel on public transport, and then decide by yourself which one's the most efficient and fastest and what matters to you most. Like walking less or less transfers, and then checking the schedules on each city's personal apps for schedules and timing. Here's some tips to make your travel experience smoother. Always remember to tap on and off with your transport card to avoid being overcharged. If you don't tap off, it will charge you for the whole journey. Also avoid travel during peak hours like 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. That's when people are going to work and coming back. If possible, if you work during those hours, you possibly can't. First of all, it's super crowded during those times, but it's also more expensive because they're trying to get everyone efficiently to their destination and making it faster, so they charge you more for that. Now, if you are a student, you might be eligible for travel discounts. Check the requirements of your city's transport website to see if you're eligible. In Sydney, if you're a local, you get travel discounts, but not international students. But I know in Melbourne, you do get student discounts on transport, even if you're an international student. So look into that. And in Perth and Adelaide too as well, I think. Don't quote me on that, check for yourself please. In busy cities like Sydney and Melbourne, always keep an eye on your thing and your surroundings. There's different types of people around in public transport, so just be mindful. It's not super dangerous, but it's still important to be careful because it is a public space. Now, using public transport can be great for a lot of reasons. It's more affordable than taxis or cabs, it's convenient and covers almost all areas, and it is environmentally friendly, carrying everyone. And you can use that time on public transport to read, to do any personal project. I know I used to read my book on public transport on the way to the gym because it just gave me an excuse to read the book, and of course I had to go to the gym regardless. But getting on public transport meant I had that extra time to do whatever I want instead of taking a bike or driving. But there are cons to public transport as well, like it is crowded during peak hours and delays happen, especially with trains and buses. In Sydney, the train union also is on a strike sometimes, so it can impact public transport. They usually have buses replacing trains when that happens, but still. And public transport is not that accessible in regional cities. So if you're living somewhere that's a bit more remote and not as metro like Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, buses might only come once every hour and sometimes they might not come at all. So it's less reliable in some areas. There will possibly still be trains, but make sure to look up the schedules before you travel. So there you have a complete guide to public transport in Australia. I hope this made you more confident in navigating your way around Australian cities. If you have any questions, let me know on Instagram. Support this video by liking and subscribing. I'm posting every day on here about life in Australia and self-development. So I'll see you next time.